Hello, and welcome to Speaking of Supply Chain, where we explore trends, current events, and innovations impacting the logistics and supply chain industries. I'm your host, Ellen Wood. Today, we are going to be talking about digital twin technology and some different things that it's able to accomplish for end users in terms of productivity, in terms of sustainability metrics, in terms of resiliency factors. Digital twins are such a powerful tool. We have Marco Moura joining us from Sonae Arauco and also Xavier Farrés, and he is with MeBot Consulting. And we are going to talk about this project that we have done for Sonae Arauco. And welcome, both of you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this opportunity of sharing our project. It was a very interesting project that we did with MeBot and with Xavi. And we are happy to share with other people what we did.
Okay, so I'm thrilled that we have Marco here. So with Marco, we have worked together for quite a few years. So we have done quite a few projects. So it's a pleasure always working with Marco. So it's a great opportunity, and I feel very happy to have Marco here and tell us, how it is to work with MeBot, and also all the things that he's doing and all the interesting projects that he's carrying on.
Yes. So digital twins are such an exciting development in the supply chain technology area. And I know that our listeners are really excited to hear about this particular project. But before we get to that, we have a little personal question for our guests today. And I know there were a couple here that we had to choose from, Marco. But the one that I'm going to go with is, if you had one meal to eat for the rest of your life, if you were only able to eat one thing, what would you choose to eat?
Well, I think it's not what I like the most, but I think if I have to eat it for the rest of my life, it will be grilled chicken best.
Grilled chicken.
Because it's something I can eat, and I will never get tired of eating it.
I think that's a valid point. There are so many things that you could do to grilled chicken, but to use that as your base, that's a very safe meal for the rest of your life. Xavier, what about you? If you could only eat one thing for the rest of your life, what would it be?
I think I would go for any pasta at all, spaghetti,
pasta?
Whatever. Pasta I can eat all day long. So no problem about that.
You know what? I think I'd have to agree. I've done a low carb diet for a while, and I miss pasta so much that I would want to eat pasta for the rest of my life. It probably wouldn't be the smartest choice, but if that's my limitation, I will eat pasta with you for the rest of my life. It doesn't even matter what's on it, because again, like the chicken breast, you could dress it up a little bit different ways. But gosh, I love food so much. I don't think I could survive very well if I were only allowed to have one thing. I like a variety. I like to eat lots of different things.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
All right. So getting back to our topic today, and that is this digital twin technology. So Marco, give us a little bit of background into your career in supply chain, a little bit about the company. Just give us a little background so that we can understand how digital twin came into the conversation.
Well, I am working in supply chain since many years, and also with automatic warehouses and AGVs. And I started more from the outsourcing and purchasing. Then I advanced to planning and logistics and all of that. And in Sonae Arauco, we had this project where we had several, issues in our flow. It is not an easy flow in the plant of material flow. And it is difficult to understand where the problems start, depending on what we are producing. In a certain moment, you have a problem, but then you change product and you start having a problem in another place. So then came the idea of asking MeBot to help us to create this digital twin to understand all the issues we were having in our material flow.
Okay, so what materials do you make?
We produce mainly melamines, what we call MFC, but we also produce the raw boards that then are surfaced to create these decorative panels. Our main objective is to increase the production that is surfaced, so upgrading the panels. We also sell some products, raw board products, as we call it, but our main objective is to go to the high value products.
Okay, so all of these wood panels, and it's not just the raw wood boards. It is composite panels that are assembled and produced and built together. So what were some of the bottlenecks that you were facing that led you to think digital twin was going to be an effective tool to resolve these issues?
Yes, our process, actually, we don't have a sawmill or something, right? The sawmills for us is like a provider, because we use sawdust, we use recycled wood, we have also our own recycle centers to receive the raw materials. So in our process, the part of the production of the raw boards is a continuous process. So it's not that is not a very difficult, let's say, process itself. But when we start upgrading the boards with the surfacing and with the different finishes that we can have, and the different flows inside of the plants, if the panels are cutted or not, and the kind of papers we are using over these raw boards, and then the positions that we have inside of our cranes and things like that. This is where things start to be more complex. And the difficulty comes when we have, for example, a different number of boards to produce packed in a different number of boards per pack also, and things like that. So in certain moments, maybe your bottleneck starts to be in the packaging line, but in other moments can be, for example, in the crane, because the number of positions and the number of SKUs you are moving at that specific moment are higher. Usually what people do is using Excel files. Not even SAP can deal with this kind of complexity, at least not in a standard way. People can develop over it, but it's not easy to fix it. So we came with the idea of seeing with MIBAC if we could create this digital twin in order that we can introduce real orders in the system, but then we can test different flows of materials in the plant. Also, different planning strategies. So we usually what we do is we try to simulate it with Excel files, but we cannot have the same level of complexity at the same time. So the digital twin will bring this ability to test different scenarios where we can plan in different ways. And this is some of the things we did with digital twin, is to test these different strategies. A strategy where we produce with more frequency, with different plot sizes, and using different flows in the plant. And also another topic that came later is we wanted also to test what kind of investments we will do to overcome these bottlenecks. And then when we start having ideas of the new investments that we will need, these investments usually are very high capex investments, and it's important to test it well before we start really doing it. So in the past, I imagine this happens also in other companies, we made some mistakes, okay, because we evaluated the situation not with a digital twin, with Excel file, and in average seems that everything is going well. But then we start seeing that we had too much capacity in one line and maybe not enough in the packaging line or whatever. And then we need to make readjustments. But sometimes these readjustments are costing a lot of money. So making mistakes in this kind of investments is also very expensive. So the digital twin also helped us to mitigate a lot these risks of investment.
Let me put a little bit of background about what Mark is telling me, that the panel woods is, of course, this is a high volume product. And if you go to a site of Sonae Arauco or of your industry, it's a huge site where a bunch of trucks are coming in, bringing some raw materials, and a lot of trucks are coming out with a finished product, and everything is huge. So you have a lot of volumes, huge pieces of equipment which are doing different parts of the process. And you have teams making decisions on one part of the equipment doing the planning, and 1 kilometer away, you have another bunch of people making decisions about another part of the equipment. And it's everything related. The decisions that one team is making, it's going to affect the next one. And for them, it's very difficult to have this visibility because it's very complex. Each one is focusing on one part of the process, and to bring all the complexity into one unique view, you need something else that what is Marco is explaining. It's not possible to do it in an Excel file. You need this digital twin technology, so you can really simulate and assess all the decision making who's going to go through all along the process.
Yeah, I was going to say, Xavier, I know that Marco, you used the word mistake, and I don't think it's a mistake, because at the time and historically, Excel was what we had. Now, when digital twin came into the picture, then we were able to look at things differently. We were able to be a little bit more proactive and to simulate those scenarios. So it's not that you were making a mistake with investments previously. It's that was the all the visibility that we had in supply chain. So it's not a mistake. It's just that's the way it was. And now we've improved upon that process. We have more capabilities now. We're able to look at the data differently, and we're able to streamline those processes and really drill down and understand where some of those bottlenecks are taking place and figure out what's going to work instead of guessing. And I think that's the key, that we're not guessing anymore. With an Excel, you're limited on the amount of data that you're going to get, but you don't have to take a guess anymore. You can put that scenario into the digital twin and test it and see, okay, if we do X, then Y. If we do Z, then A. So that, I think, is huge for companies, especially like yours, when the process is so complicated. We're talking about boards that are manufactured from raw products that are not simple. All of that is a long, complicated, detailed process that if something should happen at any point in that process that's a bottleneck, that's a big deal in terms of production and keeping things on schedule. So this is an excellent place where digital twin is able to keep you from having to make those guesses like we historically have had to do. So from that operational perspective, we understand a little bit more about maybe not the entire process, but just that it is complicated. And what were some of those efficiencies that you were able to uncover during this project? Were you able to find something in terms of the production? Was it something in terms of customer service times? What were you able to accomplish?
Yes, this project had several points that we could improve. The main point was service. We were trying to be more reliable to our customers. We also improved productivity, because then we were planning it with more certain about exactly what we could do. So we had less rework, what also was making us lose time. And of course, we also had less emissions and all of that, because consequently, if you start to be more efficient in the process, you also have less consumption of energy and raw materials and everything. So yeah, it was a very successful project for us, and with very good impacts in the group.
So obviously the project was successful. Did you learn anything interesting throughout the process? Did you find any surprises as you were going through the data, as you were running scenarios?
Yes, when we start running the first scenarios, we found certain things that we didn't model in our digital twin, because our knowledge about the process is what we put it in the digital twin. And then it was curious, I think Xavier remembers, we discovered that there were some people doing certain things in the execution that no one really knew about. Some people knew about it, but the small touches you have to do in the process to make it flow, but that actually there is no plan about it, because no one really knows that someone is doing that. So we needed to correct this, because also we're not like a kind of best practices. But it was interesting, because we were seeing that the model was like showing a blockage, and actually in real, it was not happening. So we discovered what is happening here. So it was interesting. And then we corrected this problem, because actually it was something we didn't want to do, but someone was doing and saying like, well, if I don't do that, this doesn't work. And we discovered, and then we took actions around that. So also an important point. It was also very interesting. Some things that came out of this project that we didn't expect it is the simulation itself, and to be also so visual. It was interesting also to show the issues that we had to our colleagues or even to the board members, because they don't really need to understand everything about supply chain, but they could see how the material flows were like blocking in certain points of the flow. And it was very visual for them to understand the need of improvement or the need for our new investments. So it was also one of the ways we use the digital twin, is to show with more visual to other stakeholders why we are doing these investments, why we need to change something.
So I remember on top of managing the data and understanding the problem, I think also the digital twin help us all the change management, Marco? So like showing the different stakeholders that you can do things differently. Probably you can explain better, but...
Yes, one of the things that worked very well is at the beginning we were using real data, real orders from a certain period that was representative. But we were not touching the data, so we were using what it was there. And later on, when we were showing it to our colleagues in marketing, in sales, we are showing the issues that were being created in the flow and the need for investments and the changes we needed to do. And then we also decided to make some changes, even in the kind of products we were setting. This was a little bit on top of the project, and we were showing this way it flows if we don't produce these certain products. So they understood, and it was also easier to explain them why in one situation things were not flowing as well as when we don't produce certain products, because our setup, our industrial setup, was not really prepared to do this kind of product. So it is not that we cannot produce it, but if we can avoid to produce it, for us with the current setup, it is better. And everybody understood it. And then people realized like, well, maybe I don't really need to sell it. Maybe this is just something that sometimes I can accept, but it's not really that important for our offer. So there were some changes on that side too that made a lot of impact.
So what I'm hearing is that, first of all, when it came to the processes in the facility, and I'm sure this is the case for a number of companies out there, that the people on the floor are doing something deviating from the standard procedure, what the procedure is meant to be. And in your case, it was good. They were trying to eliminate problems and being very proactive about it. The problem is that it wasn't documented, and that causes problems a long way from that actual situation. And these ripples have an effect. And this is a prime example of that, where when you're trying to do an overall efficiency, revamp of what's going on and really see the process and drill down into those individual areas, and it's not happening the way that you intended it to. So I think that's fantastic that you called that out to say, look, yes, we're glad that you're proactive about doing this, but we really need to know what is actually happening on the floor. But also that the stakeholders, this digital twin gives those stakeholders a view that they might not normally get into the details of what's happening during that operational process. So that's really a great way to sell a digital twin to your stakeholders, to say, look, we need this visibility. We need to understand what's happening, and we need to understand what's possible. I think that's the bigger thing, is to see what's possible and have a better understanding of what the results of each possibility are going to be. When we're looking at different scenarios, when we're saying we could do A, B, or C, what does it mean if we do A? And having tangible results to really explain it. And Xavier, as you mentioned, the change management. So not just to those stakeholders in the C-suite or in the boardroom, but also on the shop floor, those individuals who are changing things on their own, trying to make things better, and say, look, this is what's going to happen if we do it. It's going to make your job easier. It's going to make your job more efficient. It's going to, improve so many things within this operation. Let's do it. So that gets that buy-in for the change management. I think these are some great points in favor of digital twins as an option when you're looking to find these efficiencies within your operations. Do you agree?
Yes, for sure. And it was something we learned because now we want to do more digital twins, and we are also doing already some projects with MIBAC. And it called our attention that we have to be very careful that there is nothing outside of the model that they are doing and that it will affect, but also the opposite, right? We can test something showing that maybe certain processes don't need to work in the way they think in the shop floor or in their own processes. So this is really powerful when we test it, and we can test different alternatives and checking if the flows should be in that way or not. But with real data, it is real powerful.
All right, Savi, any closing remarks from you on the effectiveness or the value that a digital twin can bring to a production client, any other types of industries out there? I know we're talking about, production and wood products today, which is, a particularly complex process, but a digital twin is going to help any number of companies and any number of industries. Any other remarks?
Well, I think Marco has put it very well. It is a digital twin. You can reflect very precisely what's going on in reality, but also you can start to simulate things that are not happening in reality. So you can start to have imagination. Of course, better to have a backup, detailed imagination. So testing things that you think they are going to work, analyzing and together working with customers because they know the process very well, which potential solutions they might work. And then together you can test it again into the digital twin and to see if this potential solution is going to improve current operations. So I think it's a very complete kind of project because you have data analysis, business intelligence, and you have algorithms, artificial intelligence, then you have the digital twin, and on top of that, you have all the change management. So with Marco, we have been working in a very intense project, very also full of rewards at the same time. But I think it's a very interesting and very complete project to do with customers.
So, and Marco, I know you just said that you were looking at doing more digital twin projects with other locations, and is that going to help with just overall supply chain resiliency, across your organization? Because having that level of granularity and that level of visibility into everything, I would think, would enhance that.
Yes, that's our main idea for the future. Is now we are doing it more plant by plant, trying to optimize that plant, also shaking new investments. So MIBAC is helping us already in other plants, making the digital twin, not only because of to fix the current issues, because we always can optimize, but also looking forward to new investments that we are doing. But what I expect in the future is that we can connect these digital twins from different plants because we have interdependencies. Like we are producing certain boards that are going to other plants, and also some products can be produced in two different plants. So having this digital twin could help us to simulate the best distribution of capacity in certain moments, also checking different scenarios when something happens, for example, to check the resiliency of our plants. If we have an issue in one place, what will happen to the rest of the capacity, if we can really adapt or not. So in the future, I see it, a complete digital twin that could reflect our supply chain. Now we are going plant by plant, but in the future, I would like to connect these digital twins.
Wow, this is a piece of a dream, eh?
Yeah.
sounds very nice.
Yeah, but it is for the future. It have different levels of granularity, but we are also simulating already with optimizer, for example, our SNOP. But of course, when we go to the plant level, we have less detail than what we have in digital twins. So, of course, looking to the future, it would be good if we could connect it really with our SNOP, our vision of the future. When we receive a forecast, today we are using data in a different level of detail.
Fantastic. I love the forward-facing approach. Let's look to the future and see what we're able to accomplish, because we're able to accomplish a lot now, but it's only going to get better.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, thank you so much, Xavier and Marco, for joining me today and telling me a little bit more about this story. I'm sure that our listeners have enjoyed learning a little bit more about what digital twins are able to accomplish. That brings us to the end of our episode. If our listeners out there enjoyed it, please rate and subscribe in your podcast app, whatever app that you're listening to. If you have a suggestion for a topic or would like to be a guest on our show, we'd love to hear from you. You can reach me at podcast@mebach.com. As always, thank you for listening to Speaking of Supply Chain. And be sure and tune in next time.